You are here now, and that is not random. Something in the weave of reality tilted a fraction of a degree, and this message slid into your path like a letter that had been waiting for you since before you could read. It isn't another piece of information to scroll past. It is a signal you were already tuned to, but hadn't fully recognized. You're not finding this video. The field is using it to find you. When your eyes landed here, a part of you felt the quiet click of inevitability. The same way two tuning forks across a room hum at the same frequency without touching. That is how destiny moves in the quantum realm, not with fireworks, but with resonance. Pause and notice your body, the subtle tingle in your palms, the almost imperceptible lift of your breath. That is your nervous system registering that this is not just content, it's transmission. In the noise of endless advice, techniques, and rituals, you've been reaching, trying, performing for the universe as if it were a parent keeping score. And yet some part of you already knew the truth, that the field is not judging effort, it is echoing frequency. That knowing brought you here. This first moment together is not about learning a new trick, it's about recognizing that you have been broadcasting a signal all along. The doors that stayed shut, the timelines that looped, the patterns of almost manifestations, these were not punishments. They were mirrors of the vibration you were unconsciously rehearsing. And just as you rehearse those states without noticing, you can transmit new ones without struggle. The quantum field does not decode your words. It does not grade your vision boards. It tunes itself to the vibration underneath, the invisible signature of who you are when no one is watching. This is why you were drawn here at this moment, to remember that you are not chasing alignment. You are returning to it. This message is a mirror of your own readiness. You can feel it even now, a soft loosening in the chest, a sense of being recognized. That is your first proof that resonance is already happening. From this point on, everything we explore will not be theory, but direct reorientation of your signal. You are not here to perform. You are here to broadcast. And as you lean into this field, you will begin to sense the difference between doing and being, between hoping and embodying. This isn't the start of a new hustle. It's the moment you stop hustling and start vibrating as the reality that you've been asking for. Take a slow breath. Let your shoulders drop. Feel the air move through you as though the universe itself is inhaling and exhaling with you. That is not metaphor. It's coherence. This is the call. This is your signal meeting ours. Welcome. And yet, as that call settles inside you, something deeper surfaces. You recognize the pattern, because hasn't it always felt this way? You work, you try, you push forward, but somehow life keeps circling back, like a dream that repeats in slightly altered costumes. You keep encountering the same lesson, the same resistance, the same whisper of, not yet. And even when everything outside looks different, new city, new job, new partner, new plan inside, the undertone is hauntingly familiar. That sensation of déjà vu is not just your imagination. It's the language of the field revealing the loop you've been living in. The repetition is not punishment, it's physics. The universe is not scolding you. It is echoing the most consistent vibration you carry. That is why, no matter how many rituals you try, no matter how many times you script or visualize, the outcome keeps looking eerily the same. Because the conscious effort is like paint on the surface, but the field listens underneath, to the current humming at your core. Think of the way time has felt lately. Days blur into each other, weeks collapse before you can name them, months pass like smoke. Sometimes you swear you've already had this conversation, walked through this scene, endured this same delay, That is not laziness or distraction. That is your frequency bending time back onto itself. At the quantum level, time is not a straight road. It is a spiral staircase. And if your broadcast never changes pitch, you keep circling the same floor, no matter how many steps you climb, and then comes the exhaustion. You blame yourself. You work harder, push stronger, chase another method. You hire the coach. You memorize the affirmation. You read the book. But the more you try, the heavier it feels, because you've been fluent in the language of effort, while the field only speaks frequency. Imagine shouting in English to a listener who only understands music. That's what manifestation feels like when you keep trying to convince the field with action. And still, there is no blame, only awareness. Because now you can see the loop for what it is. Imagine a radio dial locked on one station. You twist the knob, but it circles the same narrow range. The song you long for exists. It's playing right now on another frequency. But until you shift your vibration, you only hear static repeating itself. That's why your dreams always feel close, but not yet. Not because you are unworthy, but because you've been unconsciously tuned to yesterday's frequency. The universe has been generous enough to show you this truth through repetition, the déjà vu, the distorted time, the uncanny loops. They are not curses, they are coordinates. The feedback is clear. Here is the signal you have been sending. And once you see it, the repetition transforms from haunting to clarifying. The loop becomes the map, and maps don't mock you, they guide you. So breathe, let this realization lift the weight off your shoulders. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not being punished. You have simply been rehearsing the past in your nervous system, and the field, ever faithful, mirrored it back. But here's the breakthrough. Noticing the pattern is the rupture in the cycle. Awareness is the first crack in the loop of déjà vu. You may feel it even now, the subtle shift, the first tremor of collapse in the old timeline. Because the moment you stop blaming effort and start listening to signal, time itself responds differently. The spiral begins to unwind, the loop begins to open. And what felt like distorted time becomes an invitation to step out of repetition and into coherence. That is the path waiting for you now. Now that the loop has been exposed, let's lift the veil and step into the deeper mechanics of why it happens. Because it isn't just psychology, and it isn't just mysticism, it's both. The intersection where science meets soul, where your biology whispers the same truth that your spirit already knows. This is where the upgrade begins. Your body is not just flesh and bone, it's a transmitter, a living antenna tuned to the quantum field. Every thought you think sparks an electrical signal. Every feeling you carry vibrates as a magnetic current. Together, they form a unique broadcast signature, like your energetic fingerprint that ripples into the field around you. This isn't poetic exaggeration, it's measurable. In neuroscience, it's called state-dependent encoding. In quantum biology, it's coherence. And in the mystical traditions, it's the recognition that your inner world bends the outer one. But here's the subtle twist most people miss. The field doesn't decode the words you say. It doesn't weigh the number of candles you light or how many hours you meditate. It reads the congruence between intention and emotion. When thought and feeling marry each other in harmony, the signal becomes clean, strong, undeniable. When they contradict, the signal fractures, scattering like static. And static is what keeps timelines locked. Think of two tuning forks across a room. Strike one, and the other begins to hum in resonance. No touch, no effort, just vibration. That's how manifestation actually operates. You don't chase the future. You vibrate, and the field resonates. But here's the paradox: the moment you try to force a higher vibration, you've already shifted into lack. Trying implies absence. Rehearsing implies not yet. The field hears that contradiction instantly. And so, the upgrade is not about more doing. It is about subtler being. You stop begging the universe to respond, and you start realizing it already is. Every anxious pulse in your chest, every breath tight with urgency, every glance at the clock whispering, "Is it working?" The field hears that louder than your affirmations, because your subconscious, not your conscious voice, carries 95% of the signal. And the subconscious speaks only one language: emotion. This is why mystical teachings across centuries spoke of surrender, of presence, of embodying the state as if it already is. They were describing coherence long before the science caught up. Now, with brain scans and electromagnetic measurements, we can map what the mystics intuited: elevated emotion married to clear intention that is the quantum formula. Not words, not rituals, state. So the upgrade you are entering now is not about new tools. It's about precision, awareness, noticing the subtle contractions that give you away, and rewiring them into congruence. It's about remembering that your nervous system is the keyboard, your emotions are the notes, and the quantum field is the concert hall amplifying whatever you play. Play scarcity, and it echoes scarcity. Play certainty, and it echoes certainty. Not because the universe is moral, but because the field is mathematical. And when you realize this, something profound happens. The chase collapses. The need to prove collapses. You no longer perform for alignment. You transmit alignment. And in that instant, the field has no choice but to organize around you. That is not magic. That is resonance. That is coherence. That is the upgrade your entire being has been waiting for. And as the science begins to echo what the mystics always whispered, you start to sense something even more personal. This isn't just about information. It's about you, not the generalized you that every motivational video speaks to, but the actual consciousness reading these words right now. Because out of billions of signals, you are the one who arrived here. Out of endless scrolls, this is the message you've magnetized. That is not coincidence. That is your field calling you to remember your special role. For years, you may have felt like an outsider, too sensitive for the noise, too deep for the surface talk, carrying visions you couldn't explain without being dismissed. You've watched others seem content with repetition, with hustle, with shallow rituals, and you've wondered why you couldn't just do it like them. That tension wasn't weakness, it was assignment. Because your nervous system, your awareness, your very embodiment are designed to act as a lighthouse in this ocean of static. You are not here to mimic. You are here to broadcast a new frequency so clearly that others begin to entrain to it without even realizing why. This is the hidden truth of chosen consciousness. It isn't a pedestal, it's a pattern. Certain nervous systems emerge at certain times, primed to stabilize a higher coherence for the collective. You've felt this calling as loneliness, as restlessness, as not fitting in. But from a quantum perspective, you're a node in a larger field, holding a frequency that many can't yet sustain on their own. Your emotional honesty, your embodied presence, your refusal to fake high vibes are not flaws, they're prerequisites. Imagine the earth as a vast orchestra tuning up. Most instruments are still warming, playing random notes. A few hold the tone steadily so the others can find it. That's you. You hold a tone. You don't force the melody. You anchor it. And because the field is non-local, your steady broadcast ripples far beyond your physical reach, into your family, your community, even strangers you'll never meet. When you shift, the morphic field shifts. This is why your personal work matters more than you realize. When you practice coherence, When you pulse the field with honesty instead of performance, you become a stabilizer for timelines. Others feel it as inexplicable calm when they're near you, or sudden clarity after a conversation with you. They may never credit you, but their nervous systems register your signal. You become a catalyst without even trying. It's tempting to dismiss this as grandiose, but humility doesn't mean denying your assignment. It means remembering it's not about ego, it's about service. A chosen consciousness is simply one that chooses to embody what others only imagine. It's not superiority, it's stewardship. And the moment you own this role without pride but with precision, the field amplifies your reach. Right now, as you read this, feel into that possibility. Feel the weight of self-doubt loosen. Feel your spine align, your breath deepen. This is not a fantasy, this is your biology responding to a recognition. Your body knows what your mind has been hesitant to admit. You're not here to blend in. You're here to be a broadcast tower for the future. That's why you've been restless. That's why you've been drawn to teachings that speak both science and soul. You were preparing to anchor a signal that cannot be faked. When you accept this role, you stop asking why me and start embodying of course me. And in that pivot, the field reorganizes. Opportunities align not as rewards but as instruments arriving to join your tone. You are not just someone practicing manifestation. You are a consciousness chosen to help the field remember itself. And as you embody that truth, your personal timeline begins to shift from static to symphony. You can feel the weight of that truth now, the realization that you are not here by accident, that you are holding a signal that cannot be ignored. And with that realization comes the promise of breakthrough. Not the vague someday, not the endless postponement of almost, but an imminent window of transformation that opens and closes like a cosmic tide. You are standing at the edge of such a window now. Breakthroughs in the quantum field don't look like gradual climbs. They look like sudden leaps, phase shifts, pressure building and then collapsing into a new form. Think of water at 99 degrees, nothing changes. And then at the 100th, everything rearranges into steam. That's how it happens with identity, with coherence, with your timeline. Days of silence, repetition, frustration, then in a moment, everything unlocks. The email arrives, the call comes, the inner weight dissolves, not because you forced it, but because you finally matched the frequency of inevitability. Here's where the urgency matters. These windows don't stay open forever. Your DNA, your nervous system, your emotional body, they are most pliable in moments like this, when awareness has cracked the loop and energy is surging to reorganize. If you hesitate, the old self will reclaim the signal and the loop will quietly stitch itself back together. That's not threat. That's physics. The old broadcast is efficient. It wants to resume its familiar cycle. And so the choice is sharp and immediate: step through now, or drift back into déjà vu. This is why ancient traditions spoke of portals, gateways, moments where the veil thinned. They weren't just being mystical, they were describing energetic windows, when the subconscious became reprogrammable, when the DNA itself loosened its grip on the past. Modern science hints at this too. Epigenetics showing that gene expression shifts with environment, emotion, and belief. The double helix is not a static script. It's a dynamic instrument. And when your signal changes, the instrument retunes. So understand the promise before you. If you stabilize coherence now, if you broadcast a clean signal in this moment, you're not just shifting mood. You are imprinting a new instruction set into your biology. Your cells carry memory. Your DNA listens. The quantum field echoes. This is the trinity of transformation: body, field, and consciousness aligning at once. And when that alignment happens, timelines don't gradually bend, they collapse into place. But remember, windows require presence. You cannot rehearse your way into them later. You cannot bookmark destiny. You choose in the now, or the moment dissolves. That's the urgency, not panic, but precision. To breathe differently now, to stand differently now, to embody differently now. Because in the next inhale, the field is already listening. So here is the breakthrough promise. Your signal can shift so completely that the field has no option but to rearrange. Your identity can be rewritten at the cellular level, and your timeline can accelerate from static repetition to cascading synchronicity. But only if you step through the window with your full being. This is your 100th degree. This is the moment where steam forms. Feel that pressure in your chest. That is not anxiety. That is phase transition energy. You are on the edge of a DNA-level broadcast shift. Don't look away. Don't wait for perfect conditions. The window is now, and you are already standing inside it. You've reached the threshold where knowing isn't enough. Awareness has cracked the loop. The window has opened, and now your nervous system is pliable, your DNA receptive, your field listening. This is the moment when action becomes embodiment, not the old performance of doing to prove worth, but a sacred act that seals the shift. Small, precise, potent. Ancient cultures understood this. They built initiations where a single gesture, word, or breath marked the transition from one state of being to another, crossing a threshold, lighting a flame, whispering a vow. In quantum terms, they were anchoring a new broadcast, collapsing probability into embodiment. You're about to do the same. Here's how. Before you reach for your phone, before you scroll, before the past floods back into your eyes through messages and headlines, you transmit before you receive. Sit exactly as you are, eyes open or closed, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you claim the moment before the old self claims you. This is the space between breaths, the sliver of now where your frequency writes the code your day will follow. Take a slow inhale. Feel your chest expand, not just with air, but with signal. Exhale gently. Imagine your body becoming transparent like a lighthouse. Light radiating from the heart outward. You are not begging. You are not trying. You are broadcasting. Now choose 3 words, not affirmations about things you want to have, but frequencies you want to be. Certain, open, magnetic, peaceful, worthy, complete. Whisper them softly. Let your body match them. Feel your posture shift, your breath slow, your cells listening. That's the pulse. 90 seconds. A coherence imprint. You're not acting as if. You're embodying as is. The field doesn't need your performance. It needs your consistency. This practice, repeated at dawn, seals the identity before the world tells you who you are. Each day you do it. You deepen the groove of the new signal. You stop defaulting to contraction. You become unavailable for anything less than coherence. To anchor it even further, mark it publicly. Write the words you chose, comment them, whisper them aloud, not because the algorithm needs it, but because your nervous system does. When you speak or type a state, when you etch it into reality, you move it from thought to embodiment. It's a ritual, a neural handshake between intention and action. You're telling your body, this is who I am today. This is the signal I'm sending. You don't need props. You don't need hours. You don't need perfection. You need presence. The field registers honesty faster than eloquence. If your word today is calm, type calm. If your word today is certainty, type certainty. Let it be simple. Let it be yours. This is not for show. It's a transmission. And as you do this, Watch the subtle changes. Your posture straightens without effort. Your decisions become clearer. Your reactions slow. You say no without guilt. Yes without fear. People feel something different around you but can't name it. They're feeling your broadcast. They're feeling your coherence. This is the ritual action that seals the shift. A small act, repeated, collapses timelines. It's not another tool to master. It's the moment you claim the new baseline and signal to the field, I am no longer rehearsing, I am transmitting. So right now, before you scroll, before you think, before you let doubt speak, breathe. Choose your 3 words and write one below. Seal it in the field. Seal it in your body. Seal it in time. This is how a frequency becomes a life. What you're doing in these quiet morning pulses is far bigger than you imagine. It looks like you're sitting in stillness, whispering a few words, breathing with intention. It looks like a private ritual, but on the quantum level, it's not private at all. Every pulse you transmit ripples outward, weaving into a field that all of us share. Your liberation does not happen in a vacuum. It becomes a signal the collective nervous system can feel, a blueprint the collective consciousness can imitate without even knowing why. Think of the heart's electromagnetic field. Science can measure it several feet beyond the body. Mystics say it stretches infinitely, intersecting with other fields, forming a living lattice of information. When you shift your state, you're not just changing your life. You're modulating the lattice. You're changing the weather of consciousness that others are walking through. That's why a single grounded presence can calm a room. That's why a single act of genuine coherence can dissolve tension without a word. This is the hidden law behind service. You don't serve by sacrificing yourself or performing perfection. You serve by stabilizing a frequency so others can find it. You become a tuning fork for humanity. When you hold steady, other nervous systems begin to hum in resonance. Mothers become calmer around you. Children feel safer. Colleagues find themselves breathing easier. They may never attribute it to you, but the field does. It registers a node of coherence and amplifies it. You've already glimpsed this without realizing. A friend calls you after weeks of chaos and says, I don't know why, but talking to you makes me feel better. A stranger smiles at you in the grocery line. Someone you barely know messages you with a breakthrough they had after a brief conversation. These are not random. These are signatures of your field at work. And here's the beauty: you don't have to try to uplift anyone. The very effort to try drags you back into performance. All you have to do is embody the state. The field does the rest. This is why your personal coherence is not selfish. It's the highest form of contribution. It gives humanity an energetic template for what is possible. From a quantum perspective, we are all entangled. When one node changes, the network changes. When one frequency stabilizes, the grid recalibrates. That's why the work you do in your living room at dawn reverberates through people you'll never meet. It's why liberation is contagious. Your nervous system becomes a living permission slip, broadcasting, this state is safe, this state is real, this state is available. And others, without even hearing your words, begin to feel it in their own bodies. Imagine the collective as a dark concert hall, hundreds of instruments tuning out of key. Then one violinist finds the correct pitch and holds it. Slowly, others adjust, matching the tone. In minutes, the chaos becomes harmony. That's what you're doing. That's why it matters. So release any guilt about focusing on your inner work. Release any fear that you're not doing enough. Every time you anchor a new identity, every time you hold a breath of coherence instead of contraction, you are doing more for humanity than 1,000 frantic actions. You are seeding a new baseline into the field. You are midwifing a collective shift. This is not idealism. This is physics, non-local influence, morphic resonance, coherence spreading through entanglement. And you, reading this now, are a conscious participant. That's why the window found you. That's why the ritual called you. That's why you're being asked to embody instead of perform, because the grid needs stable nodes, and you are one of them. As you continue your practice, remember you're not just changing your timeline, you're changing the timelines of countless others who will never know your name but will feel your frequency. This is your quiet revolution. This is your invisible service. This is how liberation travels one nervous system at a time, broadcasting freedom until it becomes the new normal. By now you've learned that your signal is not an idea but a living frequency, and you've felt glimpses of it inside your own body. This section is where we bring that knowledge from the head into the skin, into the breath, into the muscles that carry your memories. Because the quantum field does not respond to words floating in the mind. It responds to the felt state vibrating through the nervous system. This is embodiment, and this is where the shift becomes irreversible. Close your eyes and picture your body as a vast landscape. Your spine is a mountain range. Your breath is the wind moving across valleys. Your heart is a lighthouse on a cliff, casting pulses of light into the infinite dark. Each thought you think sends a lightning flash across this terrain. Each feeling you hold becomes weather when you choose coherence. The storms clear when you slip into fear. Clouds gather. The field sees the weather, not the forecast. This is why embodiment is more than posture. It's a full sensory broadcast. Imagine your skin as an antenna picking up and sending subtle currents. When you tighten your jaw, when you clench your fists, you're transmitting contraction. When you soften your shoulders, when you inhale slowly, you're transmitting openness. It's that immediate, that simple. And because your subconscious speaks only in sensation, changing your body changes your broadcast faster than any mantra. Take a slow breath now. Feel your ribs expand like a dome. Exhale as though the air itself were light, pouring through your cells. Sense your heartbeat not as a drum, but as a beacon. Each beat a flare into the field. Here I am. This is who I am. Notice the temperature of your palms, the space around your head, the tingling in your spine. These are not random sensations. They are the language of your frequency. You've probably experienced moments of spontaneous embodiment without naming it. Walking in nature and suddenly feeling infinite. Holding someone you love and feeling your heart glow. Hearing a song and feeling chills cascade down your arms. Those chills are coherence, your nervous system, and the field resonating as one. The more you practice the morning pulse, the more these sensations become your baseline instead of rare events. Think of a tuning fork again, but this time inside your chest. When you breathe with intention, when you whisper your chosen words, you're striking that fork. The vibration moves through your fascia, your blood, your electromagnetic field. Without forcing anything, you become the song you've been trying to find. This is what the field hears, not your plan, but your pulse. Embodiment also means noticing the micro moments when you slip. A sigh that collapses your chest, a thought that clenches your gut, a scroll that shrinks your breath. These are clues, not mistakes, but signals. Each is an invitation to recalibrate, to return to the lighthouse posture, to breathe your 3 words back into the body. Over time, the practice rewires your default settings. You stop trying to be in a high vibration. You become unavailable for anything else. Feel into this right now. Let your feet press gently into the floor. Let your crown lengthen toward the sky. Imagine your heart expanding until it fills the room with quiet light. Imagine every cell of your body whispering the same frequency, a unanimous choir of "I am safe, I am certain, I am here." This is the broadcast the field cannot ignore, because it is honest, visceral, and magnetic. And as you anchor this embodied sensation, you'll notice how the external world begins to respond differently. People pause before speaking to you. Synchronicities arrive without effort. Tensions dissolve when you enter a space, not because you're performing, but because your body has become a transmission tower of coherence. You're no longer sending mixed signals. You're living the signal. This is the power of embodied sensation. It's the bridge between invisible quantum principles and tangible physical reality. It's the moment when your practice stops being a ritual and starts being your nervous system's native language. It's how you turn concepts into code, code into cells, cells into a timeline. You've felt the tingles, the breath, the posture shifting into transmission. Now we move into the deepest layer of this process, the breakthrough coded into your very DNA. Because what you call patterns, what you call habits, what you call just who I am, is not just psychology. It's biology. Your cells carry memory. Your genes express according to signal. And when your frequency changes, your DNA listens. Science calls this epigenetics, the way environment, emotion, and consciousness can switch genes on or off like light switches. Mystics called it initiation, the moment when the old self dies and the new one is born. From both perspectives, it's the same truth. Your DNA is not a static script. It's an instrument waiting for new music. And every time you pulse coherence, you retune the instrument. But here's the paradox. DNA doesn't shift quietly. It shifts under pressure. Think of water boiling silent until the final moment, then bubbles break the surface. Think of a caterpillar dissolving into mush inside the cocoon before it reorganizes as a butterfly. That in-between stage feels like death, like chaos, like pressure from all sides. That's what you're experiencing when you sense the tension of change in your body. It isn't failure. It's phase transition energy. You've felt it, the restlessness in your chest, the sudden fatigue, the urge to give up just when you've been most consistent. This is the old self unraveling. Your nervous system has been rehearsing scarcity, fear, contraction for so long that when you begin to transmit freedom, it panics, it whispers, "This isn't safe, go back." That resistance is not proof you're failing. It's proof your DNA is recalibrating. Picture a violin string being tightened. As it stretches, tension builds. But that tension is what allows the note to rise to a new pitch. Without the stretch, there's no new song. That's what's happening in you. The pressure you feel is not punishment. It's tuning. It's your cells rewriting their code under the new broadcast. And this is where timelines shift, because your DNA is not just personal, it's ancestral. It carries imprints of fear, survival, contraction passed down for generations. When you stabilize a new signal, you are not only freeing yourself, you are breaking patterns your bloodline rehearsed unconsciously. You are closing loops your ancestors couldn't escape. You are opening timelines your descendants will inherit. This is why the pressure feels so intense, because the shift is not only yours. Hold steady. The temptation now is to collapse back into the old self, to mistake the pressure for failure. But this is the precise threshold where timelines collapse and reorganize. Stay with the breath. Stay with the pulse. Whisper your words into the tension. Let the contraction know it is safe to dissolve. Because in that moment, your DNA chooses coherence over fear. And then comes the breakthrough. Suddenly the tension releases, suddenly the static clears. Suddenly opportunities appear, not as random luck, but as reflections of your new genetic broadcast. You don't just think differently, you are different. The field recognizes the new signal, and reality bends to echo it. So when the pressure peaks, when the fatigue feels unbearable, remember this. You are not breaking down, you are breaking through. Your DNA is shifting, your identity is retuning, your timeline is reorganizing. Stay steady, stay coherent. You are at the 100th degree, and steam is about to form. This is where all the threads converge. You've traced the loop, felt the déjà vu, broken the repetition, pulsed coherence, embodied sensation, endured the pressure, and now the shift is happening in your very DNA. But the story doesn't end with you, because your signal isn't just personal, it's planetary. Every breath of coherence you transmit becomes part of humanity's next chapter. Your transformation is not a private victory, it's a collective evolution. Imagine billions of signals weaving the fabric of reality. Most are noisy, fractured, inconsistent. They carry static from fear, from history, from exhaustion. Yet a few, steady and clear, begin to rise above the noise. Those few become anchors. They set the pitch for the symphony. They make coherence contagious, and you, right now, are one of those few. Not because you demanded it, not because you chased it, but because you chose to embody it. This is your cosmic mission to live as a broadcast of what is possible. When you embody alignment, you're not just improving your life, you're demonstrating a new human blueprint. Others feel it in your presence and realize, even if unconsciously, I could live like that too. That realization ripples through families, through communities, through generations. The field remembers itself through you. And that's why your timeline matters. Not because you need another achievement to validate yourself, but because your liberation liberates others. Your coherence makes it easier for strangers to find their own. Your DNA breakthrough becomes part of the species' evolution. Your personal surrender becomes a doorway for collective freedom. This is what mystics meant when they said the kingdom is within you, not a metaphor, but a vibrational reality that reshapes the outer world. So as you step beyond this message, don't think of it as ending. Think of it as transmitting. Every choice you make, every breath you steady, every word you whisper into the morning is a signal sent into the grid of consciousness. And that grid is listening. Humanity is listening. The cosmos is listening. You don't have to force the mission. You don't have to strategize the outcome. You simply have to remain available for coherence, unavailable for contraction, available for alignment, unavailable for static. When you do that, the field organizes everything else. People appear, doors open, synchronicities multiply. Not because you chased them, but because you became the signal they couldn't ignore. This is the paradox of your mission. The less you perform, the more the field amplifies you. The less you chase, the more timelines bend toward you. The less you try to prove, the more undeniable your influence becomes. Not as fame, not as spectacle, but as quiet inevitability. The future doesn't need more performers. It needs more broadcasters. It needs you. So take a breath now, not just as closure, but as commissioning. Inhale as if drawing in the strength of every ancestor who longed for this moment. Exhale as if offering a signal to every soul who will benefit from your shift. Stand in the knowing that your personal liberation is a contribution to humanity's evolution. Stand in the calm certainty that the field has already heard you. You are not just someone manifesting. You are a node of awakening. You are not just living a new timeline, you are seeding a new earth. And the signal you carry will outlive you, echoing through generations, collapsing old patterns, and weaving new symphonies of coherence into the human story. This is your closing, and it is also your beginning. Your shift is humanity's evolution. Your signal is destiny's song. Walk in it, live in it, broadcast it. The field has no choice but to listen.